Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them new patients and new profits. And I'm very excited about today's guest because it took me a long time to get him on here. And it's Dr. Mark Beaty. He's a cosmetic and facial reconstructive surgeon in private practice with 2 locations in and near Atlanta, Georgia. Now, in addition to performing facial surgery, he also offers non-surgical face and body contouring, laser services, skincare, specialty genetic testing, which we'll have to learn more about, and wellness medicine. Now, Dr. Beaty is a frequently invited speaker, both nationally and internationally, for facial surgery, and he's even trademarked Pro Lift facelift technique that we'll talk more about because that's designed to ensure a great result with the least intervention, which I assume that means downtime. Now, he's also widely published and has actively participated in the development of several technologies for non-surgical enhancement of the face and body. Now, Dr. Beaty and his wife, Laura, who's also a physician in the practice, which we'll have to talk more about, they're very active in the community and they support organizations including Face-to-Face Domestic Violence, Cool Girls, that sounds great, Planned Parenthood, and several art organizations. So Dr. Beaty, welcome to Beauty and the Biz. It is a pleasure to have you.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Nice to be here. Glad we could connect and spend some time together.
Absolutely. So just briefly, how did you end up in Atlanta? Are you from there? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I actually did my fellowship year here. So I did my residency training at University of Iowa. I'm from the Southeast. Most of my family's from the Southeast. And fellowship year in Atlanta, and it just worked out for us. I mean, we were comfortable here, and my wife Laura was enjoying what she was doing, and we had an opportunity to stay in town, and did.
Fantastic. So, what's the makeup of your practice? How many team members, service providers, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So we are currently 5 service providers and a total of 10 team members. And that has been actually, interestingly, a significant expansion over the last 2 or 3 years. So, I started out as a solo surgeon, and our practice had been and still is really focused on the core surgical portion of the practice. But about 4 years ago, we started making a serious effort to scale up. And so we gradually added a nurse practitioner, followed then by my wife, Laura, to help with our wellness medicine and some of the non-surgical aspects of the practice. And then we just brought on a second surgeon about 8 months ago.
Wow. Do you think in today's world, can you live on surgery, or do you feel like you do need to bring in the other services that then feed the surgery, or could you live without it?
I think you could live without it. I mean, I think the model of having a small shop, surgically focused practice is still a very valid one. What we wanted to do was to be able to provide a broader array of services for our patients so that we didn't, they're always asking you about the other things that that they need. And while we had a great set and still do have a great set of partnerships here in the Atlanta Metro for some of those services, we felt like bringing them in-house and being able to offer patients the ability to do more of a one-stop shop was a win for everybody. So that's what motivated that change.
I completely see the pros and cons of doing that either way. You can keep it easy and just do the surgical, or you can offer more services to your current patients, but then there's some complexity to that, or there can be. Are you a dictatorship, or are these people partners? Are they contractors? How is that working out?
So everybody has a little bit different deal. And, my new associate has just joined the practice, but our anticipation is that she will be joining as partner. And, the other arrangements with our nurse practitioners and other certified providers that are non-physicians. Of course, those are different.
Bringing somebody on board, I get this question all the time. Uh, how do you do it without creating absolute chaos in the practice when when the two of you don't get along? Any pearls on how you went about finding that person?
So I was quite fortunate. My associate is Dr. Celeste Nagy. She's just out of fellowship with Dr. Steve Perkins from last year. Anyway, she did her residency here in Atlanta. So I actually had known Dr. Nagy for a few years prior to her doing fellowship. Learned when she was R3, I guess, that she was interested in facial plastic surgery. So we kept in touch. I worked with her on some of her pre-fellowship efforts, and then entered. It came up as a discussion that she might be interested in coming back to Atlanta. So yeah, we were able to work it out, and thus far it's been great.
That's fantastic. I hope it works out. You know what I always wonder though, you facial plastic surgeons always add another facial plastic surgeon, and I get that. You probably want them to take over the practice, and your
Mhm.
facial plastic surgery patients. But I always wonder why wouldn't you bring in a plastic surgeon, and then you could be neck up and they're neck down. Was there
Well,
any discussion about that?
that has been a open discussion within our practice for a while. I would say the answer for us anyway is that while we're not actively pursuing a general plastic surgeon, that is absolutely on the radar. And would we consider and make available the physical plant to bring on a general plastic surgeon? Absolutely. Have I found the right person at this point? No, I haven't. So, it just, the order that it occurred was, in this case, largely person dependent.
Mhm.
I had what I felt to be the right facial plastic surgeon to join the practice come along, and that happened first.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about your wife. She's lovely. She's been with you forever, and she's doing the non-surgical services in your practice and the wellness for females. How is that working out? The pros and cons of working with your wife.
Yeah. So Laura and I very intentionally did not work together for many years in our careers, and actually had this discussion many times that we really like our marriage, and therefore we really did not want to practice together. But about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, she was at a transition point in her practice, and we decided that after 22 years that we would be able to make it work, and we could actually work together as well as be happily married. So we brought her on, and it's worked out great. She obviously is a huge addition for the practice. It opened up a whole new avenue of services that we could offer. Not to mention the support of having a highly accomplished uh, general medicine doctor, family practitioner, to help us surgeons with the medical end of things. And she had been doing. She learned quite some time ago quite a bit about technology-based solutions. So she has quite a lot of laser experience and radio frequency technology experience, and so that's the majority of what she does on a procedural basis within our practice.
And then, do you have pretty good boundaries? Like at home, are you allowed to talk about work, or is it all work? How do you?
No, it's neither. I don't think we don't really draw boundaries. So yeah, we do talk about work at home, but we don't fixate on that. And I think we have pretty rich and diverse lives outside of work. So at least thus far, it hasn't proved to be a problem.
Terrific. Of your practice, how much would you say is surgical versus the non-surgical? Because you're doing quite a bit of non-surgical body contouring. And what is the wellness section? What is that about?
Yeah. So we're 2/3 surgical, 1/3 non-surgical, and the focus is very much on what we do as facial plastic surgeons. As far as the wellness aspect of the practice, we have many of our patients are coming to see us because they're not just wanting to enhance their appearance; they're looking to enhance their overall lifestyle, and they feel great and they want to, as best they can, maintain their vitality in every way going forward. So what Laura is able to offer is it's mainly set up as an advisory service. It's not intended to replace the patient's primary care relationship, but rather to augment it with things like um, specific specialty genetic testing that we do. We do a little bit of work with hormone management and women's health things. It again, more as a supportive role.
Okay. And does that feed into the surgery, or is it basically like just a separate profit center for you?
Actually, it goes both ways. So certainly there are people who enter into the practice through that end of things, either the non-surgical procedural end or through the wellness advisement end that end up becoming surgical patients. But it likewise is a fantastic resource for our surgery patients to be able to take care of some of their other concerns.
Okay. And then let's talk about staff. Most of the time, they are the biggest challenge you have in a cosmetic practice. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but any pearls about staff hiring, firing, motivating?
Yeah. So I've been quite fortunate in having a excellent and very stable staff. And that is, as you mentioned, hugely important and is a big problem a lot of times in these practices. The whole aspect of training a incoming person, not just in the culture and the day-to-day bones of how the practice works, but the whole process of integrating that personality into the rest of your staff is a tremendous expense of both time and resources. So when you're in a situation like we are, where really all of our staff members have been with us for multiple years, and we pay a great deal of attention when hiring to making sure that we are hiring not just for a resume or a skill set, but for a good fit with the entirety of our practice. As a general rule, all new employees are, to the extent possible, interviewed by everybody within the practice, and those opinions are taken into consideration when we consider hiring. I think to get the best quality people, you have to compensate people well. You have to treat them fairly. And one of the most important things is I think you have to provide clarity of, number one, what the vision, goals, and mission of the practice is, and also clarity about what the job that you're expecting them to do entails. Too often it's easy to expect people to, oh, well, they should understand that. But you know what? No, folks aren't mind readers, and I think providing that clarity and fairness of expectation and evaluation is super important in acquiring and maintaining a solid staff.
I think you must have taken my MBA course because you're saying exactly what I would have said as well. And another huge pearl that you mentioned that I hope didn't escape anybody was have your staff interview the candidate. I So many practices just plop somebody in there and say, okay, here's Sarah, and no one
Yeah.
getting input. And if you want some staff drama, that's how you do it. You get no feedback. Don't let them be part of the process. And that's where trouble ensues. So I love that. And plus, everyone is different. We all have different personalities, and you've got to figure out if they have a good personality for your practice. They could have a great personality, but just not for your practice, or for your culture. So
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what I was alluding to. That's one of the reasons that we started having everybody interview with everybody to get a sense of how personalities might mesh. Another little interesting thing that we started doing is we do Myers-Briggs on all of us. So we, and I truly believe that that helps in, managing how to put roles together and how to put people together for us to understand a little bit about, what that underlying psychological makeup and goal setting process is for each of us.
Now,
self included.
Okay, right. Now I took Myers-Briggs a million years ago, and it was spot on. Yeah. Regarding the demographics of your practice, Atlanta seems like a very diverse area. What is that makeup for you? Because now you've got a lot of diversity in your staff, a lot of diversity in your patients. How has that balanced? Like some places don't have that. They have a very homogeneous kind of group. How are you handling that?
Fair question. I think that to be successful in the entirety of the Atlanta market, which has been our goal and what we're doing, you absolutely have to pay attention to being welcoming and comfortable for a very diverse population, because that's what we have. So our two locations are very different. The original location is in Alpharetta, which is in what is now, I guess, the second ring of larger suburban communities outside of the city. So it is a population that skews a little bit older, a little bit more affluent, a little bit more country clubby. Our Midtown location is literally right in the middle of Atlanta. I mean, if you drop a rock on the map of Atlanta, that is where our Midtown office is. So as you might expect, that population skews younger, more ethnically diverse, more culturally diverse, and so they have very different feels. But I think we have always looked to hire very very open and tolerant and flexible people for our staff, and we've been able to create a great environment for, I think, anybody who comes to see us.
Good for you. By the way, you mentioned the two locations. How difficult is that to manage both of them? Where is your time split? I am so torn on this. I often say, why don't you just go deeper in your own practice rather than try to go out and find some more patients elsewhere? What are your thoughts on that, and what's your journey been like?
Yeah. So for us, as I mentioned, we started in the suburban location. And we really felt like, with the way that Atlanta was developing and with the way we believe it will develop over the next 10 years, that we needed to be in town. And so we were specifically looking for a way to do that. When we initially made the move, it's been not quite 7 years now, to open the second office. And it was just me as the only surgeon. Gigantic pain in the butt. You have, no doubt what you have said rang very true for me. And I was basically splitting time between the two locations. Now, as we have expanded the provider team and brought on a great nurse practitioner and now a second surgeon, that has become much easier. And so my time is not nearly as split. I'm a little bit more in the Midtown office. Dr. Nagy is pretty evenly split between the two, as is our nurse practitioners. So that, at this point, that's worked out quite well. I probably advice-wise would agree with you if the intent is to continue to have a solo surgeon practice. I would think really hard about trying to run two locations because I think it is difficult.
And then how are you managing people when you're not there? You've got to have some pretty tight controls on things. You can trust people all you want, but you're still not there with them. Have you tightened up your numbers or your reporting or your tracking to make sure things are profitable or as profitable as they can be?
Yeah, you have to do that, and honestly, you have to have a solid practice manager to be able to do that too. Because one of the things for all of us as surgeons is who are also owners and who are running a practice, you really have these two big hats that you have to change all the time. You have the running the business hat, but you also have the being responsible for the overall strategy and practice of taking care of all of your patients. And sometimes those two things can conflict, and sometimes those two things can really compete for the amount of time that any one of us has to to spend doing what we need to do on a daily basis. So I couldn't do it without having the support of my practice manager.
Okay, the practice manager, that's a pivotal role. Another one that's difficult to fill, but when you find the right one, makes your life golden, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in a dual location situation, I think that would be, yeah, you absolutely have to have that.
Mhm. So let's switch gears and talk about marketing. I love the idea of you differentiating yourself with your own signature facelift called ProLift.
Mhm.
Can you
Okay.
talk more about that? Because that's how to do it.
Yeah. Well, part of it, certainly it has had its marketing benefits, but the main reason that I started talking about ProLift is this is the methodology that I came up with over my first 12 years or so in practice. And I've published this and talk about it quite a lot. The basic idea is that I think most of us recognize that every facial rejuvenation procedure is different. Just like every patient is a unique individual, what that means is that there's no right way or no one way to do a facelift, for instance, on each patient that's always going to be the best. What you're really trying to do is to get each patient the best possible results that you can while minimizing any unnecessary intervention. And so the key concept with ProLift is that there are some of the decisions, particularly with facelifting, about exactly how we are going to handle tissue repositioning, specifically SMAS repositioning. Some of those decisions are made intraoperatively because they simply can't be evaluated preoperatively. And by doing that, I have been able to achieve this ideal of minimizing the amount of intervention to only what that particular patient needs. So they're going to tend to have only the length of incision, degree of dissection, amount of bruising that they need to achieve the result that's appropriate for them. That's basically what it's all about. So it's very clinically focused. And then, the marketing benefit is secondary.
Okay. There's another differentiator that you have, and it's your improv training. So I saw Dr. Beaty, and we were at a conference, and he gave this great talk on how improv school helped him convert more consults. So can you talk about that? Because as a facial plastic surgeon, you're working with very minute details of a face, and you're working with a patient who's going to transform her face, not just her body. There's a little more room there for forgiveness, but this is the face. So I just think that's the toughest patient when you're trying to set expectations. So tell us about the improv.
Yeah, so this was something that kind of came about by accident. Laura and I both have been theater goers of a wide variety of types for many years, and we found ourselves, gosh, I guess it was about a year pre-COVID, something like that. We were visiting friends in Chicago, and we're at Second City, and watching a show, and had a couple of drinks, and they of course mentioned, as they usually do, that they give classes, because most improv theaters do offer classes to the general public, and thought, hey, this might be fun. We bantered it about back and forth, and before the night was over, I had signed us up back in Atlanta at our local improv theater, Whole World, which is right down the street from where we live in Midtown. So we started taking classes, and ended up myself doing formal classes for a couple of years. And I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a great outlet for getting away from work and doing something completely different, in as different an environment from medicine as you can imagine. You're going from everything being super tightly controlled to everything being completely unpredictable, and having to be done immediately off the cuff. So I guess the main reason that I started it was because it seemed like fun, and it was fun. But then I recognized that there really was a huge secondary benefit, and that was just that ability of rapidly tuning into communicating with another human being wherever the scenario or the conversation was going. And it really does, convert into what you do every day, in enhancing your ability to pick up on verbal and nonverbal cues that people are giving you, and being able to respond effectively to the conversation that you're having with
That sounds painful to me. I I had enough trouble with public speaking, and the secret was to be prepared, you know. But when
Right.
you're doing improv, not only is it public speaking, but now you have to think on your feet. And I think it's brilliant. Like, what good skills to have if you're willing to do it. Did Laura stick with it, or no?
She did about a year and a half. She stopped one class short of what I did. Um, but yeah, she did quite a lot of it as well. And actually, to be honest, she's better than I am
No,
at it in general.
oh, it sounds awful. As a matter of fact, I'm from Chicago, and I know,
Oh,
I know that whole world very well. And
right,
it's a great,
right,
that show is amazing, actually.
yeah,
Although now I can't stay up that late to watch it. I just watch little clips on YouTube.
yeah,
So let's talk about social media, because that's become a big part of a cosmetic practice's marketing plan typically. So
sure.
let's talk about your marketing plan. Where is that fitting in there, and what's working and what's not when it comes to finding new patients?
Yeah. So social media for us has really taken over the lead by far. I would say in the last 4 years, we have gone through from most of our efforts being focused on website and print and associated live event kind of things, to the focus being overwhelmingly social media and website. We still do some live event things. We still are active in the community, and do events and social support. We do a little bit of print, but that's a way smaller portion of the marketing allocation, versus what it was only a few years ago. So one of our staff members is about half of their job is organizing and maintaining our social media presence. And I think that is where the majority of our marketing efforts go right now.
Well, you know what I'm finding? That's creating a new problem, and that is you're doing all of this marketing via digital marketing. The issue is you're dealing with the public, and they like to talk to you 24/7. So what's happening is the practices are trying to figure out, how do I communicate with these people when they're coming at me in all sorts of different directions? They're either calling, hopefully you hope they call. That's your best hottest lead. But most of the time nowadays, they might not be. They might be texting you if they can, or emailing you, or filling out one of your forms, and they're doing it at 10 at night. How are you? How are you handling? And I call them inquiries in today's world. I don't call them sales leads yet. I think they're still very much looking around and just checking things out. So I call it an inquiry. But how are you responding to those 24/7? Do you have technology helping you, or are you bringing the cell phone home at night? What are you doing to handle it?
Yeah. So the answer is, for the initial response after hours, we have technology helping us. So they get they do get an immediate response, but it's basically technology generated. Then one of the first things that gets done when we come in the morning is to go back through those inquiries and leads, prioritize what needs to be done as far as reaching back out to those patients or those potential patients. And we make every effort to get back to our inquiries within 24 hours in some sort of a live sense. Now, as you've mentioned, it used to be that was always on the phone, and that's not the case anymore. We do have a compliant texting and messaging system that we can use. So that has opened up a whole avenue of communicating with patients, not by voice, that some people actually prefer. And so, that's been a little bit of a learning process for us, but I think has worked out quite well.
What do you think in today's world, the way it's changing so quickly? What kind of skills do you think you and or your staff need to prosper and succeed here? For example, I think pretty soon everyone's going to have a social media person on staff, as well as you can also have a social media company, but it's so obvious when you have outsourced it. I really think you need a roving reporter inside the practice, catching the personality of the practice, the culture of the practice. So I think a videographer is becoming a must. And possibly, like, what other skills have you not needed before, but you need now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, to me, and this is the old school surgeon in me, but I think, the core aspect of any practice remains, and in my opinion, will always remain, outstanding patient care, great results. I mean, that's what it's about. That's what we do. And the other parts that are, as you say, becoming more and more necessary in order to generate that patient flow that all of us need, that's where it requires the new thinking and the new skills. So, as I mentioned, we already have an employee who has, as part of their job description, taking care of our social media. Everybody participates to some degree, self included, and Dr. Nagy is great at this too. So, we're generating, conscious of, and are generating content for the practice and within our own social media feeds as well. In-house videographer, I don't know. I can see an argument for that. I know a couple of people who have one, and I don't think we're quite there yet. But sure, I mean, if you're at the point where you're generating that much content, I think that could ultimately be a great thing. We currently outsource our videography, but to give you an idea of the growth of that, over the last couple of years, we've gone from doing a shoot about every 6 months to what we are doing this year is we're doing a shoot every 6 weeks with the idea of generating at least 10 pieces of new video content, new professionally produced video content every 6 weeks.
Nice. Very, very nice. And, the only way to make that happen is to put it on the calendar and make it happen,
Well,
that kind of stuff.
for us, it was, we have been very happy so far with the relationship we have with the company that's doing our video.
Mhm.
And yeah, that is absolutely part of it. It has to be a planned and scheduled thing. And even outsourcing the videography and the production, um, there's still a lot of work that is incumbent on the practice itself because they're not writing for us. They're not coming up with concept for us.
Right.
They're helping with storyboarding. But there's, it's a whole nother aspect of things that we need to do to make those shoots happen.
So, how much of your marketing dollars and time and effort is spent on patient retention? Because I feel like I'm the only one who talks about it. And I just think it's imperative that you get that patient to come back again and again, refer their friends, give you a good review, approve their photos. I have a system to make that happen, but I don't. Am I the only one who cares about that, or how important
No,
is that
no,
to
not at
practice
all.
like yours?
Though, you know what? I think that's highly practice dependent, and we, as part of our mission statement and our core values, specifically believe in patient retention and long-term relationships. That's what we're about. We prefer not to do, single treatment, see you later. That's just not our thing. So yes, we have always put considerable resources into patient retention, and I agree with you completely that is probably your most cost efficient way of generating top line versus constantly going out and seeking new patients. Fortunately for us, anyway, I think the internal marketing and patient retention efforts from a cost standpoint are relatively inexpensive
Mhm.
compared to new patient acquisition. So I would say, as far as financial resources thrown specifically toward patient retention, it's probably a quarter of what we spend overall. As far as effort resources on the part of the staff, it's 2/3. We're constantly talking about how we best um, select for and encourage patients to do reviews for us. How do we create attractive packages for patients to stay with us for maintenance procedures that we know that they need and will enhance their results? But how do we best make that attractive and part of what we present to our patients? That requires a lot of personal and staff effort.
I just hope everyone heard that, Pearl. It takes time to do that, but the point is you put in that time so you don't have to put in the money. And the how exhausting is it to do consults all day with strangers who
Yeah,
say, I have to think about it. I don't know. I have to go talk to my husband. I have another consult to go on. I just think there's an easier way to do this,
yeah,
the saying.
yeah, yeah.
Out of all the years you've been in practice, just give me one big mistake that you still, you don't lose sleep over it, but just a big mistake that you made that others could avoid.
It's such a easy one. Biggest mistake that I made in practice that every mentor of mine told me not to do is, if you want to do this when you finish with fellowship, go ahead and make the plunge and do facial plastic surgery. I started out my career doing facial plastics, but associated with a ENT group. And that probably cost me 5 years in development. So don't do it. Your mentors are all going to tell you not to do it. Yes, it seems like a lot to bite off, when you're young and you're just coming out. But yeah, you need to be doing what you're trained to do, and that was the biggest mistake that I made.
Okay, good. That's a good tip. I hear that one a lot, by the way. And so regarding your mindset is terrific. You have a very open, friendly mindset. I can see why your staff stays put. I would think you seem easy to work with and easy to get along with. But how have you worked on the business and marketing side of things? How do you know what you know? Did you take courses, listen to podcasts? How did you learn the business side?
So yeah, it's been a combination of things, and I will say that while I had a wonderful fellowship and training experience, and particularly on the clinical side, I got next to no business training nor conveyance of business acumen from that experience. And I think that's probably pretty common. I don't know that, but I expect that it is. So, yeah, you have to, for me anyway, I had to acquire it entirely on my own. And I wish I could say, oh, I had this great plan or organized strategy for doing that. I don't think that that's true. It really was just a hodgepodge of the experience of trying things and making mistakes, taking some courses and doing some program planning. But yeah, it was mostly just learning it from going out and doing it.
And that's one of my goals. I do have an MBA and I did spend years in school to
Yep.
learn all of the business side and the marketing side. And you can shortcut it by just working with somebody who already knows it, but because they're definitely not teaching it. Even today, even in today's world, they're not teaching it in medical school. And I don't see how you can do that. It's not about just the surgery, it's about the marketing and the business side of surgery. It's all three of them that have to work together in sync
Yeah,
to where you're trying to go.
agree with that. And I don't think that that will ever be something that's part of medical school or residency. You know, at the fellowship level, it would be nice. And I think that there are some of our fellowship directors who do, convey a little bit more about the business side of things. And the fellows who train under those people are fortunate. I didn't get that in
Right.
mine.
So, last question. Tell us something we don't know about you, and you can't say this one because I already know it. I saw it in a video. Um, Dr. Beaty has been to every state in the United States except one.
This is true.
Yeah. Should we leave them
True.
hanging, or should we tell them which state?
Alaska is my missing. I had to. We actually, my wife and daughter went a few years ago. I had something come up and couldn't go on that trip, or I would have had all 50. But yeah, that's.
Right. So, what are your plans to get to Alaska? Do you
Oh,
have any?
I will do so. I actually have some friends from medical school who go up and do a fishing trip every year. And, it's just, it will happen, just a matter of coordinating schedules. As I really do want to go.
Wow, fishing in Alaska is as painful to me as improv is. So you and I are never gonna meet socially. That's for sure. so,
Yeah.
so give us. Oh, and there's one more that I do know. Well, no, you tell me. What's something we don't know about you?
I can pretty much assure you that almost nobody knows that I lived in a hand-built Wikia for 2 years when I was in undergraduate school.
Oh, what?
A hand-built Wikia. It's a Native American structure made out of like sticks and blankets and tarps and stuff.
You lived there for 2 years?
Yep.
Oh my
Built it
God.
on a friend's property, and yep,
How do you look
pretty
back at
cool.
that experience what did you get out of that?
Um, uh, a lot of stuff. I mean, it was just the experience of building the structure was pretty cool, and it's a whole different, very frontiersy style of living. Now we did have, this was on regular property just outside of town in Chapel Hill, so we we piped in what we had water. It was not like totally rustic camping for 2 years, but wood-fired stove, and it was interesting.
Did you have air conditioning?
Not really. We created some pseudo air conditioning with some fans and water irrigation devices, but not really. It was pretty hot in the summer. We were well heated, but AC was pretty non-existent.
All right, that's pretty interesting. And you are definitely an open-minded surgeon. I don't see that very often. Good for you. So, Dr. Beaty, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you at another conference coming up soon.
Perfect. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much. Everyone, thanks so much. That wraps it up for us today. And if you've got any questions for Dr. Beaty, his website is beatymd.com. So you can talk to him there. And then if you've got any questions for me, please feel free to leave them at CatherineMaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at CatherineMaleyMBA. And we will talk to you again soon. Take care.